one of the most powerful things is you can do transactional processing and the analytics, basic analytics in one place without having to go somewhere else.
Hello, my name is Tudor Riscutia. I'm a solution architect and SAP champion. And because we have this exciting UI5 month, I want to talk about what consultants can do in this case. You know, SAP community is not only developers. There are also business consultants, functional consultants, process consultants. How can we get them closer to UI5 and get them to see the possibilities of UI5? And to talk about this, I invited Simha Magal, who is a fellow SAP champion, but also a professor at the Georgia State University, and who is teaching the next generation of SAP consultants. Hello, Simha. Nice to see you again.
Hey, Tudor. Thanks for the introduction.
Simha, how do you teach the UI5 without coding? Or how do you teach the possibilities of UI5 to your students?
That's a good question, Tudor. We don't do much coding in our program, but the idea of possibilities is important. You know, our students are younger than at least me, probably your age, but they're younger. They want to do things differently. They learn differently. So what we do is we'll show them how things work in the SAP GUI, how things work in the Fiori environment, which is based on UI5. And one of the most powerful things is you can do transactional processing and the analytics, basic analytics in one place without having to go somewhere else. And that tells them what's possible in this Fiori environment. And that gives them ideas of, all right, what else can I do with UI5 if I learn about it? So we try to show them the power of what's possible with UI5.
That sounds really interesting. I kind of have a different approach. I'm working in actual projects, and I work with seasoned consultants, people who've been using SAP software for over 30 years, and they are very locked into SAP GUI. And I remember also such an example back in 2016. It was a sort of insurance project, and one of these consultants was explaining something on the whiteboard, and he drew always like a 2-axis graphic and said, these are the limits until who is responsible, who pays. And then he turned to the system, and in the system, he had a table. And we asked, why is it not the same? Because this is how you explain it. It's the best way to visualize this data. And he said, it's not possible. I said, it wasn't possible, but it is now. With UI5, you can easily do this and make it work. And we made a really quick prototype, and it really opened up their minds, and they were really interesting. Like, what can they do? And they can reinvent or innovate the whole business by the possibilities UI5 offers.
It's an interesting point you make that consultants in the companies with years of experience with SAP technologies are sometimes reluctant to change because they know the SAP GUI so well. And one thought that not just me, a lot of other professors too, is that our students, as they graduate and they're familiar with Fiori and other UI5 elements, may become change agents, may help those organizations who are reluctant to move perhaps into the UI5 world. Maybe they'll help them transition by showing them what's possible.
I want to get to the point of motivation. How do you stay motivated to do this when you're not a developer, when you're not touching the technology?
The biggest thing there in terms of motivation is to understand what's possible, right? If people stay in their old world and not even experience or explore what's possible in the new world of UI5 and Fiori, they won't know what's possible. So a big part of educating that group has to be showing them what's possible. And depending on the environment, those are different ways of doing that. And you might have some examples of how you showed somebody what's possible.
Yeah, I think this is something very important for every developer out there, every UI5 developer, is to take the time and show the possibilities, teach UI5 to the consultants. Because in the end, what I see in real life, most projects are not very big. It's just 2-3 people. So there is no UX expert, there is no designer. It's just someone who knows very well the business, but doesn't know the possibilities. So he will design, of course, the same old application, without having this skill set. How can somebody who is a non-developer, who is not excited to program and see always the latest version, how can somebody stay motivated? What can they do? What can they look in the SAP community?
They may not be actually coding new UI5 applications, but they are likely to be requesting applications from the developers. And if they understand the possibilities, they might request some things that perhaps are only possible with UI5 and not the older technologies.
And what I would like to add as well is inside the SAP community called Fiori Makers. It's not so active or not always active because it's cool what they do. It's basically other people, companies build UI5 applications. So these are not SAP products or not part of SAP, but they build UI5 real applications which are actually used productively. And they submit them to SAP, to the UX team at SAP. And they review it according to the Fiori standards and suggest what they could improve to make the usability better, or what you could do with UI5 to make it better. And this is a really cool community project, but it relies on people submitting such applications. And I want to encourage anybody who has something like that, put it out there, because this is something very entertaining to watch, and you learn so much. They show the thinking behind and all the concepts, and there's so much to learn. And it's something very motivating and entertaining to watch compared to just scrolling through all the guidelines and recommendations.
Are these submissions visible, accessible by?
Yes, you can. You can Google them first, look them up in the SAP community. There are recordings and videos and slides, and they show the thinking behind the UX design and everything. And it's not developers, so they don't show any coding. It's just pure design. So it applies very well to somebody working in consulting, trying to understand the possibilities.
Great. You see, I learned something new today.
To your students, maybe if somebody shows you something new, you have to do an ice bucket challenge.
Yeah, I'm going to have to send my students to this community space so that they can learn more than the example I give them. I think, the UI5 technology is very powerful, and if you're in an environment that can benefit from UI5 applications, there are many things that are not even considered. People don't even have thought about it. So find examples like the community area Tudor mentioned to see what's possible. And once you understand that, you might actually build some very powerful things for your organization. Thank you, Tudor.